Chapter 4. Jealousy. Athena and Arachne. Athena, goddess of wisdom, was the daughter of Zeus. She also took care of agriculture, navigation, spinning, weaving, and needlework. The legend says that she sprang fully grown and dressed in armor from her father's head. Athena's appearance was warlike, but she only made war against those who were on the side of evil. Arachne, a mortal, was skilled in spinning, weaving, and needlework. Her skill in all needlework was well known, and people traveled long distances to watch her work. She made the work look easy as her long fingers spun and weaved the wool into beautiful garments. But when she heard someone say that Athena might have taught her, she became very angry. She was jealous of being placed in an inferior place to the goddess. She challenged Athena to a contest. Athena was disturbed when she heard this, but she decided to give the young woman a chance to redeem herself. Athena disguised herself as an old woman and went to visit Arachne.
"I have many years of experience,"
said Athena.
"So I hope you will not ignore my advice. To challenge a goddess is dangerous. You would be better to only challenge mortals like yourself. You should ask Athena for forgiveness for what you have said."
Arachne immediately stopped her spinning and looked angrily at the old woman.
"Keep your advice for your daughters,"
said Arachne.
"I stand by my challenge. I am not afraid of the goddess. Let her try her skill against me if she dares."
"Then I accept your challenge,"
said Athena as she dropped her disguise. The frightened bystanders quickly knelt down before her. Arachne blushed and then turned pale, but she was not afraid of her visitor. The contest began. Both women worked quickly and skillfully as their hands wove the threads into exquisite designs. Athena wove a scene showing the majesty of the gods, while Arachne chose to weave into her cloth examples of the failings of the gods. Although Athena admired the delicacy of Arachne's work, she was insulted by the message it portrayed. Suddenly she tore Arachne's tapestry to pieces and destroyed the loom. Then she touched Arachne's forehead. Instantly, the young woman felt guilty and ashamed of her actions. Arachne fell into a deep depression and tried to hang herself. Athena took pity on the hanging Arachne and brought her back to life.
"I won't let you die, Arachne,"
she said.
"But to ensure that you remember the lesson you've learned today, your descendants will hang and weave forever."
Athena sprinkled Arachne with the juices of aconite, and immediately Arachne's hair, nose, and ears fell off. Her body shrank and her head grew smaller. Her long fingers became extra limbs that grew from each side of her body. Soon, she was no bigger than a bug and scurried along on 8 legs. She now produces and spins thread from her body and is often found hanging from her web. Athena had transformed Arachne into a spider.
Eros and Psyche. Aphrodite, goddess of love, became jealous of Psyche, a beautiful young mortal princess. The fame of Psyche's beauty was so great that crowds of strangers came to look at her. Aphrodite found that the men who had once idolized her now turned their devotion to this young virgin. "Am I to be overshadowed by a mortal girl?" she cried. "Zeus has judged that I am more beautiful than all others. I will not allow her to take my place of honor." She called her son Eros, god of love, and told him to punish Psyche. "You must make her fall in love with an ugly, mean man of low class," she ordered. Eros hurried to obey his mother's orders. In Aphrodite's garden were 2 fountains. One had sweet fresh water that would produce a perfect love. From the other poured a bitter liquid that would increase the misery of an unsuitable marriage. Eros filled 2 bottles, one from each fountain, and quickly flew to Psyche's bedchamber. Eros dropped a little of the bitter liquid onto Psyche's lips while she slept. She immediately opened her eyes. Eros was so startled by her beauty that he instantly fell in love with her. Frantically, he tried to reverse the mischief he had done by pouring the sweet water of love over her face. After that, many men of all classes admired Psyche's beauty, but none was brave enough to suggest marriage. Her 2 sisters married royal princes, but Psyche remained alone and grew to hate her beauty. Meanwhile, Eros thought of nothing but his love for her. Psyche's parents were afraid that they had made the gods angry. They asked Apollo for his help.
"Your daughter is destined to be the bride of an immortal lover,"
he said.
"Her future husband waits for her on the top of the mountain. He is a monster who is stronger than any man or god."
Psyche's parents made arrangements for the wedding and left her on the top of the mountain. Her eyes filled with tears as she watched them return to their home, and she trembled with fear. Then the gentle wind lifted her and carried her into a lush green valley. She lay down to rest and eventually fell asleep. When she awoke, Psyche saw a path and followed it to a majestic palace that she thought must have been built by a god. She went inside and saw golden pillars supporting the high arched roof and walls covered with magnificent carvings and paintings. The rooms were richly decorated and filled with treasures. Suddenly she heard a voice.
"Dearest lady,"
said the voice,
"all that you see is yours. Servants will obey all your commands. A bath will be made ready when you require it. Supper will await you when you desire it."
Psyche rested and bathed and then sat down to supper. An invisible choir entertained her as she ate the delicious food. She had not yet seen her new husband, but was intrigued to know what he was like. Her husband came to Psyche in the darkness that night and disappeared before dawn. He whispered sweet messages of love that inspired passion in her. She often begged him to stay so that she could see him in the light, but he refused.
"Why do you wish to see me?"
he said.
"If you saw me, you might fear me. I love you. All I ask is that you love me as an equal and do not adore me as a god."
Psyche obeyed her husband's wishes, and for a while she was happy. Then the palace began to feel like a prison, and she told her husband that she wished to see her family. He agreed to let her sisters visit her, and before long they arrived at the palace. Psyche's sisters were envious of her fantastic surroundings and asked about her husband. When Psyche confessed that she had never seen him, her sisters began to fill her mind with suspicions.
Apollo said you were destined to marry a monster.
They said,
People say that your husband is a monstrous serpent who may wish to devour you one day. Take care, get a lamp and a sharp knife and hide them. When he is sound asleep, light the lamp and see if what they say is true. If it is, free yourself by cutting off the monster's head.
After her sisters had returned home, Psyche hid a lamp and a sharp knife in her room. One night, when her husband had fallen asleep, Psyche rose and lit the lamp. She was astonished to see a handsome and charming god. He had golden ringlets and 2 snow-white wings on his shoulders. It was Eros. As she leaned over to have a closer look at his face, a drop of burning oil fell from the lamp onto his shoulder. Eros awoke, and without saying a word, spread his wings and flew out of the window. Psyche tried to follow him, but fell from the window to the ground. Eros stopped to help Psyche.
"Oh, foolish Psyche,"
He cried.
"is this the way you repay my love? Leave me and return to your home? True love cannot live side by side with suspicion. I must leave you forever."
Psyche was distraught when Eros flew away, and spent her days and nights searching for him without success. In desperation, she finally went to Aphrodite to beg for her help.
"You are disloyal and untrustworthy,"
said Aphrodite angrily.
"My son's heart is broken. Prove to me that you are hardworking, and I will allow him to return to you."
Aphrodite took Psyche to the temple storehouse and pointed to a vast quantity of wheat, barley, beans, and lentils.
"Separate these grains and put each kind into a different pile before nightfall,"
she said. Psyche sat silently looking at the enormous work she was expected to do. Eros saw her and suddenly felt sorry for her. Then he instructed the worker ants to come to her aid. The ants carefully separated each grain into the correct pile and then vanished. Aphrodite returned at twilight and was displeased to see that the task had been completed. Next morning, Aphrodite had a new task for Psyche to perform.
"In the field over the river is a flock of sheep with golden fleece,"
said Aphrodite.
"Fetch me a sample of each one's fleece."
As Psyche was looking for a safe place to cross the river god stopped her.
"Oh, beautiful maiden,"
she said.
"the river will flood if you cross it now. The hot sun makes the rams fierce, and they will attack you. Wait until they seek shelter in the cool shade of the trees. By then, the spirit of the flood will have been lulled to sleep, and it will be safe to cross the river."
Psyche followed the river god's instructions and successfully accomplished her task. Aphrodite's anger increased when Psyche returned with the sheep's golden wool.
"I know that you did not do this alone,"
she said.
"So I have another task for you. Take this box to the underworld and give it to Persephone, queen of the regions of hell. Be quick. I must bathe in the essence of Persephone's beauty potion before I attend a gathering of the gods this evening."
Psyche was certain that this task would be the death of her. To get to the regions of hell, she would have to throw herself off the top of a high cliff. But before she could do so, a voice spoke to her.
"There is a safer way to descend to the regions of hell,"
it said.
"Go to the Black River. Charon, the ferryman, will take you down to the regions of hell and bring you safely back again. Persephone will place the essence of her beauty in the box you carry. Whatever happens, do not open the box or you will be destroyed."
Psyche took this advice and traveled safely to the regions of hell. Persephone filled the box, and Psyche hurried to return to Aphrodite. But when she saw daylight again, Psyche was overcome by a great desire to see inside the box. She carefully lifted the lid, but instead of a beauty potion, the box contained only an eternal sleep. It escaped and overcame Psyche, who immediately fell into a deep, dreamless sleep. Eros quickly flew to Psyche's side and gathered the sleep from her eyes. He returned it to the box and then woke her, saying,
Your curiosity will be the death of you one day. Take this box to my mother and let me take care of the rest.
He left her and flew up to the heavens to ask Zeus to persuade his mother to stop tormenting Psyche. Zeus went to Aphrodite and begged her to allow the young lovers to be together. Aphrodite eventually agreed, and Psyche was brought to Zeus's palace, where she was given a cup of ambrosia.
Drink this, and you will become immortal,
said Zeus.
Then you and Eros will never again be parted.
Before long, the union of Eros and Psyche was blessed with a beautiful daughter. They named her Pleasure.